Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Camille Shaw, and I am the project director of the South Carolina MBDA Business Center, which is operated by DITSA Inc. Thank you for joining today's webinar, which is the first of a four-part series on business succession planning. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Before we begin, let me give you a quick overview of the center and thank our sponsors. The South Carolina MBDA Business Center is funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. We work with small businesses throughout the state to help them to scale up, build capacity, and grow. And we would like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us for this initiative. Our sponsors are the City of Columbia, Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council, and iSuccess. So we've come to the time that you all have been waiting for. Our facilitator today is joining us from iSuccess Consulting of Atlanta, Georgia. Next, T. Renee Smith is the CEO of iSuccess Consulting with 25 years of experience in corporate strategy, supplier, and leadership development. She is the secret weapon behind many businesses and top corporations scaling and positioning themselves as an industry leader. She has helped to raise more than $30 million in capital for small businesses and managed multi-million-dollar budgets for diverse programming with Fortune 500 companies. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's put our thinking caps on and join me in welcoming Ms. T. Renee Smith.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's Business Succession Planning webinar. We are going to have an amazing, amazing time. I am getting ready to introduce our wonderful panelists that will be sharing this virtual stage with me today. But before I do, I want to tell you to relax. This is not going to be your typical webinar where we are talking to you the entire time. We want to make sure that it is very engaging, and we want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered. So I want to ask everybody to bring up their chat and to bring up the Q&A box, because as we're talking, I'm going to be asking you questions and asking you to drop things in the chat. And then as we go along, if you have a questions, please put it in the Q&A box. We'll answer some of the questions as we're doing the training, and then other questions we will ask at the end. So let me introduce our illustrious panel. First, we have Mr. Peter Michael Brown. Peter is the president and the founder and the owner, which means he's very busy, of Collite International. With over 31 years of experience, Peter is responsible for operations, financial, and strategic plan of the $30 million corporation with over 100 employees. So we know Peter's going to have some valuable nuggets for us today. Collite is a global manufacturer of retail and corporate identity signage worldwide, offering full-service sign programs including technical surveys, project management, engineering, and installation of signs. Some of Collite's clients include American Airlines, Texas Instruments, Dell Technologies, Siemens, Duke Energy, Train Technologies, Holiday Inn, Cartier, Ferguson, Hilton Hotels, Extended Stay America, and Levi's. Everybody, let's give Peter a virtual round of applause. I know we can't see you, but you can see us. Virtual round of applause. Yay! Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Peter. And then we have Mrs. Taruko Langley, owner of McDonald's. Taruko began her career at the age of 14, working for her parents, Willis and Clara Langley, as a McDonald's drive-through cashier in Columbia, South Carolina. So you put the work in early. Nothing was handed to you. She attended Spelman College, shout out Atlanta, graduating cum laude with a BA in economics and a minor in management and organization. After working almost 2 decades with Accenture, she resigned to work full-time with a family family business and fulfill her dream to become an owner operator. So you brought all of those talents and experience back home. So Taruka is a proud owner of several McDonald's restaurants in Columbia, South Carolina. She loves God and is a member of First Nazareth Baptist Church and the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. So if there are any AKs in the house, send Taruka some love. And she gives back to the community, and she is blessed with 2 children whom she adores. Everybody, virtual round of applause for Taruka. All right. And last but not least, we have Miss Lauren Perry Palmer. And Lori represents the 3rd generation of the Palmer family in the funeral profession. She has continued the family tradition of first by becoming the only woman in Sumter County to earn a degree in mortuary science, to become a certified pre-planning consultant through the National Funeral Directors Association, and a member of the State Board of Consumer Affairs Pre-Need Advisory Board. All right, now listen to this part of her resume. She is a graduate of Mather Academy, Duke University, attended Howard University, and Oxford University in England. So after holding positions of responsibility in Washington, D.C., she completed her mortuary training at the Gumpton Jones College of Funeral Services in Atlanta. As a licensed funeral director and embalmer, she continues in the family tradition of lifelong learning, service to the community, outreach, and ministry to those in need. She is the mother of a son, Palmer, who represents the 4th generation of the Palmer family in the funeral service profession. A round of applause. All right, so everybody, I want you to drop in the chat, and we would like for everybody to participate. And we're going to kick off, and I want to see where your fun level is, because I want to see how hard the panelists and I have to work today to make this a fun and engaging session. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your fun level? 10 is I'm excited, I am ready to go. Teach me about succession planning. Is it at a 5? Okay, it's just now Tuesday, I'm getting into the groove of it. Or are you at a 1? I'm so glad I'm on a webinar. You guys cannot see me because I still have my pajama pants on. Let me know where you're. Oh, the chat is disabled. Okay, so just think to yourself, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Because hopefully by the end of the session, we will be at a 1. Okay, so I want to kick off before we get started. And Taruko and Peter, I would like for you to share what your journey of business ownership has been like. What was your path to business ownership? Because I think during the sessions, I'm going to teach information and I'm going to share knowledge. But I think when you all make it personal, or when I make it personal, that's when it really resonates with the our attendees today. So Peter, can you start off by telling us what your journey to ownership was? And then Taruka, if you can come behind them, please.
Yes, and thanks to everybody for being on today. And I think that's really a good way to get started, because I think everybody's journey is different.
Mhm.
And family business is complicated, especially the more family that's involved, the more complicated it gets. My particular journey, I'm the youngest of 8, and my dad, after World War II, got into the sign business. And over his 50 years in his career, they took many twists and turns, and were definitely one of the leaders in our industry. And at some point, when I was just getting out of college, Dan and his partner decided they were going to sell the company to a private equity group. And as part of that sale, they kept control of the property and equipment and land, and they had a long-term buyout. Unfortunately, that made it actually easier for the purchaser to go out of business, which they eventually did in 1991. And so my dad and his partner got all the property and land and everything back. And at that point, the business was just no longer viable in its current form. My brother Marty and I, he's 7 out of 8, and I'm 8 out of 8. We decided it was easier for him because he didn't have a job. It was harder for me because I did have a job, and I had a good job. I was working at Milliken. But we were young enough. I was 26 and he was 29. So we were young enough to restart the business. So we restarted Colite in April of 1992. So with some quick math, that means we just celebrated our 31st year in business. we've done a lot of things that I think we were able to learn, and really thinking now about it, I think we were able to kind of siphon off all the good things about the business, but then also put our own thumbprint on how we wanted to do things going forward. So maybe in a way we were lucky that we were able to restart the business versus taking it over. Sometimes there's some baggage when you got to take things over. And I think we were able to, in a way, also not have any hangover from my dad and my brothers running the business as well. So we were able to basically start over but then continue really on our legacy, our family legacy. So I consider myself lucky. We work in probably over 100 countries a year. We have an amazing customer base and amazing employees, and it's really been a great 31 years.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. All right, Taruka.
All right. So I too have to echo Peter in that I consider myself lucky as well. I'm a proud McDonald's franchisee, and I love what I do. And so my journey, as you shared a little bit about it, I started at 14 right here in Columbia at our Elmwood location downtown in the drive-through, taking money in that back booth. And it was important to my dad that he taught us everything from the ground up so that we knew exactly how to perform and to know the policies and procedures. And so I worked all the way through high school and then attended Spelman College. And that's when I decided, maybe I want to do something else. And my parents said, well, when you graduate, we want the return on our investment. So we want the ROI. We spent a lot of money at Spelman. You need to go out there and you need to show us what else you can do. And so that's what I did. I landed a job with Accenture, stayed with them for 17 years, so almost 20 years. And I did all kinds of things. Our job was to help companies become more successful. And so I worked at different companies through Accenture, like Bell South, Delta, Raytheon, R.R. Donnelley. They had me traveling the world. I went everywhere. And then in 2007, I decided I'm coming back home. So when I came back home, I said, Dad, I would like to come home and I'd like to start to get back into the family business. And he said, okay. And then I said, well, this is how much I make. He said, well, I'm not going to pay you what you think you're worth. I need to see that you can do it and that you really want it. And so I had to kind of prove myself because they were trucking right along without me. My brother was already in the business. He already became an owner. And so here I am coming back saying that I wanted to become an owner. And so I had to prove myself to my dad. They were still writing stuff down on spreadsheets. On paper. And I told him, I said, we can do this a different way. There's technology out here. We can capture this information on a spreadsheet to make it a lot easier so you can manipulate how you look at the report. And so I had to prove myself to him. And then after I proved myself to him, he said he wasn't going to pay me what I was worth, what I thought I was worth. So I had to save. So I worked Accenture and McDonald's at the same time. And I saved my money for 2 years so that I could, once I jumped off the Accenture, I could sustain myself. And so I did that. And so after I did that, I stopped working with Accenture full time, and then I went into McDonald's program. So before I could officially get into the program, I needed to refresh myself into the McDonald's systems. I did that. And then I jumped into the program, and it took me about 2 years. So again, I had to prove myself to my dad, and I had to prove myself to McDonald's. So when you get into something like this, you really have to want it. You really have to want it. And so it took me until 2015 to realize my dream as ownership. 2 years in the process of in the program, but 2015 is when I became an owner operator.
I love it. So Taruka, hold on one second. Lauren, I'm coming to you in just 1 second, but I want to ask the question to Taruka first and then back to Peter. What was the hardest transition for you in going from another job to actually coming into the family business? And to go with you, actually coming into the family business and trying to introduce something new.
So for me, it was hard trying to introduce something new because, again, they were already doing it, right? My dad started with McDonald's in 1973. I was one, so I'm giving you my age a little bit. But he started in 1973, and so he knew McDonald's. I mean, he had, as we say, ketchup in his veins. I mean, he knew it, and he was successful at it. And he also had my brother. So coming in, I had to really prove myself. I had to show why I was coming with an idea and how it would be successful. And he would say, okay, try it over here. We have these restaurants. You can try it at this one restaurant. And if it works, then I'll let you put it across the whole thing. So I had to show that I knew what I was doing. Right. And I appreciate that, because that was really no different than being in corporate America. Right. On my job at Accenture, if I came with the idea, I had to research the idea and then vet that idea with everyone before we would roll something out. So I was trained for the task. I didn't realize I'd have to do it with my family, but I did, and I appreciate that. So that's how it happened for me.
Thank you. Peter, what was the hardest transition for you?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I was pretty young, so I was 26, and I had been working at Milliken, and came from, when you go to work at a place like that, you got a really big safety net of people and processes and things, and then my brother and I restarted the business with $4,000 in one employee and really didn't have much of an idea of what we were doing. And what you realize is that you're in charge of everything now. So if the copier doesn't work, you got to fix the copier. And if, the bathroom needs to be cleaned and you look around and there's no one there to clean the bathroom, I guess you got to clean the bathroom too. So I went from, working in a large corporation to almost, it felt like I was just starting over again. And I used to tell people, they said, well, what's the difference between working for Milliken and working for yourself? And I say, well, if you're at Milliken, the worst thing that can happen is you get fired. And if you're working for yourself, the worst thing that can happen is you lose everything. So it was heavy for a while. But I really believe that, God had put me in that place. And I always believed that, between me and God, we were going to be a pretty good team, and he was always going to be there and point us in the right direction. And you got to be patient. And I think that's the hardest thing to be when you're young, is to be patient. And there's highs and lows and ups and downs. And we purposefully tried never to get too excited when things were good and never to get too down when things were bad. So we always planned for the future. And we always had a good plan. It was always based on teamwork, common ground, and appreciation for each other. So I think if you do that, you got a really good chance. But you got to also have perseverance. And things are tough along the way. But if you believe in yourself and if you believe in God, I think you got a leg up on everybody.
Well, I love it. You can never go wrong with Team You and Team God together. That's always a
Amen.
winning formula, always. Okay, Lauren, can you please share with us your business ownership journey? Talk to us about what the journey or the path to business ownership was like for you.
Well, I must say that I'm sort of a combination of Peter and Taruka's experiences here, because I was born into the business. My grandfather founded this business in 1933. Growing up, I had the opportunity to see my father and my uncle, who came and worked together in that business. My grandfather died at the age of 54, and so I never had an opportunity to actually meet him and learn his business ways, but I know that he taught his sons, Robert John Palmer and E. Perry Palmer, everything he knew. Perry was a born funeral director. He started very early. at an early age. And so the difference in my experience is that I think because I was a little girl, they did not allow me to be exposed to the clinical aspects of our business. I could basically see it from afar, but they really did not want me involved. So I went, long story short, I graduated from Duke University with a degree in public policy and management. I went to law school for a year at USC, and it was not a good experience for me. So I moved to Washington, D.C., had a lot of experiences there in terms of working in for a youth advocacy organization and some other experiences that helped with management training. And then at the age of 27, I believe, I went to mortuary school because I was determined to pay my dues, earn my keep, just as Taruka had mentioned, not come in on a name. And even though I was not as exposed as some of my classmates to the funeral profession as they had, because most of them were male. We only had, I think, 2 females in my mortuary school class. When I finished mortuary school, passed the boards, we had a death in my family that brought me back to South Carolina. And I was able to be fortunate enough to be trained by my uncle E. Perry Palmer and my late father, Robert John Palmer. I would do 2 weeks Columbia, 2 weeks Sumter, and I would go back and forth and be trained by both. So that was a true blessing. One of the things, though, that I noticed is that it's still very, very much male dominated, but I think that women bring a unique perspective to the business. I was committed to the concept of generational business in our African American community, which I think is rare. And I also felt that as a woman, I could bring some unique gifts and talents to the industry. And so under my leadership, for example, we started a bereavement center. We did more community outreach. We use our chapel for community forums and all sorts of non-traditional concepts that had not previously been initiated by my late uncle and my late father. My father died in 1995. He had the same brain tumor that Kennedy had. And so I had to go to Sumter and run that business. And then my uncle died in 2010 and I relocated to Columbia. So I feel like it's been a real experience. Now I do have a son who is in his 30s, who was educated here in Columbia, and he went to UVA, and then he went to mortuary school, and now he's 4th generation in our business. And he, of course, has his own perspectives about what needs to be incorporated in the funeral industry. There are new challenges that we face. Each generation faces a different type of challenge that the previous generation did not have to deal with. And so because of these unique challenges, I think that, yes, I, like Taruka, had to pave my way, prove myself, prove my competency. And also with my colleagues, I had to prove my competency in the sense that no one took a woman seriously. In acquiring the family business in Columbia, it was not given to me. I had the first option to buy, and I took that option because I wanted to keep the business in the family. I did not want it to go corporate. And so these are the unique challenges that were presented to me. And now when we talk about succession planning, I have unique challenges in how that's going to be transferred to the next generation, should that be their desire.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So panelists, I want you to think about it, because that's one of the questions that we have when we get to the Q&A period, is about the unique challenges of the different generations, and also challenges that you're facing for succession planning. All right, next slide, please. And I want to remind all of the participants, the chat is not enabled right now. So if you have anything that you want to say, just drop it in the chat. And if you, not the chat, the Q&A. And if you have specific questions, you can drop it in the Q&A Q&A as well. All right, so we're getting ready to launch the poll. We always like to see who is in the room. So the first question is, what generational business owner are you? Are you first generation, second generational, third generation, or 14? Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. The poll question is different. So the first poll question is, how many years have you been in business? So have you been in business under 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, or 15 years plus? So everybody, please take a few seconds to answer the poll to let us know where you are. Under 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15 years, or 15 years plus. All right, we have quite a few participants on, so I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to answer. We'll give it about 5 more seconds. All right, so good. I see that the chat is working. Some of you all are answering in the chat, but I want to make sure that you answer on the poll. Can you make sure you answer on the poll? All right. We can close the poll. All right. So we have 34% of you guys under 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 24%, 10 to 15 years, 10%, and 15 plus years, 32%. Awesome. All right. Next question, please. Next poll question. Next question. All right, guys, we're just going to drop it in the chat. So let me know how many of you all are you a first generation business, second generation business, third generation business, or fourth generation business? All right, let's look in the chat. Y'all are lighting it up. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of first generational businesses. We have a couple second generation and we have a couple of third generation, but first generation are dominating. So this is going to be an amazing session for the first generation, because honestly, most of the times when you're first generational business, you're just looking to survive or you're looking to grow the business. So business succession planning is not necessarily the top of mind. So this is great. Next slide, please. All right, so I see you guys still coming in, first generation, second generation. Okay. So the next question that we have, and you can drop it in the chat, regardless if you're first, second, third, or fourth generation, how far along are you in the succession planning? So what in the world is succession planning? Okay. Are you at the very beginning? Have you identified successors? Are you in the process of developing leadership and management? Or are you well on your way and you have a robust infrastructure, both leaders and systems to support succession? So everybody answer the poll question for me. The poll is up. Where are you in the succession planning process? You're at the beginning, you've identified successors, you're developing your leadership and management, or you're developing your leadership and you're also putting systems in place. All right, 3 more seconds. And then panelists, I want to ask you, how important is it? A lot of times when we talk about succession planning, we just talk about who the successor is. So I want you all to talk real quickly before we close the poll and tell us how important is developing your leaders and managers and making sure that you have the systems in place. Because sometimes people don't focus on the systems and the infrastructure, they just focus on the people. And we can close the poll while we're answering. So Peter, Lauren, Taruka, whoever wants to go first.
I'm happy to start. I think the number one problem is focusing on people as a succession plan. So what we did was we've really invested in the company to make the company more structured, so it doesn't depend as much on Marty and myself as it has in the past. So we put together a concept that we call SPP, which is structure, process, and people. So people's third, even though I think at the end of the day it's the most important, but it can't be the most important without the structure and the process. So the structure and the process make people better within the environment that we're creating for them. And I think it helps to allow us to not have hands-off management, because I don't think that's what we're doing, but we've transitioned from day-to-day management to much more of a oversight and approval process or business model. So we're working on metrics. We're working with our people, and we're working with them on how to develop the processes to allow the company to thrive thrive with us here or not here. So for Marty and I, we don't have any specific plan to exit the business, but we do have a specific plan to minimize ourselves and to make us less important within the business.
That was a great answer. And just if you all didn't see the poll, the majority of the percentage, I think it was 60-some percentage, are just at the very beginning of the stages.
And if I can say
succession
one more
planning.
thing about that, the for all those people in that situation, the first 5 years are the most fun, without question.
So what happens at year 6? Is the fun go away? Peter, what
No,
are you
because
saying?
what happens is you can run a $5 to $10 million business with highlighters and stickies, but you can't run a big business with highlighters and stickies. So it's more fun because it's easier, and the reason it's easier because your brain tops out at a certain point, and you've got to develop all these structure and systems and processes around you to support yourself and the people around you. So it's the older you get, the smarter you get, or the more experience you have, but you just become better at it. So we are continually trying to reinvent ourselves, not for reinvention's sake, but for purposeful development of the company.
I think that's a great answer. That's a great answer. Taruko and then Lauren, let us know.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to be honest and to really be honest in assessing the gifts and talents of the person or persons that you may have in mind for succeeding you in business. And I think that it's important to do one of the lessons from the previous generation that we have learned is you do need to allow room for that person to show you who they really are, like Maya Angelou would say. Be true to and be honest about what you see. Because sometimes one of the persons who might be one of your successors may show you strengths in a certain area, but then the critical area that you would like them to be stronger in, they may not willing to show up for. And so then the question becomes, does this person have the skill set to determine that someone else, that is something that can be basically shared with a person that they trust, who would come in and actually replicate it. So is this something that that person can trust their team about, whatever team they create for themselves? So I think you have to kind of decide, all right, is this person showing me that they have that ability, that they have the business acumen to actually do that? Or is it best to accept what you see and say, okay, maybe this person's not interested in carrying this business to another generation, and then be at peace with that. So I think that we have to be, what I guess I'm trying to say is we have to be able to allow the room for the person to show you who they are, and also to allow room for mistakes to be made and for growth opportunities. But at the same time, if it appears that they do not have the interest or do not have the motivation and energy to give it what it takes and to put in the hard work, then you have to be honest about that. Is there someone else in your business environment that possesses those skills and would be excellent at it? And then you have to make an assessment about which is more important. If the person in your family is showing that they're not willing to do it, then who else in the community that you're in, your business environment is? And then do you trust enough for them to work with that person? Or do you prefer that they take on the next generational success for your business?
Those are great comments, and you're getting lots of love in the chat on those comments too. Tarika, what do you think is important with succession planning, the systems and the people? A lot of times people just focus on the people and not the systems.
Right. So both Lauren and Peter have given great answers. I agree with both of them. We are focusing on developing people. So developing that leadership and making sure that the systems that McDonald's sets for us are in place. So we're lucky in the sense that we're a franchisee. McDonald's they spend millions of dollars putting together processes and procedures for us to execute. And so that is the important step there. I think it's important to have that there. In my situation, I have daughters and they've said they're not ready. They have their own dreams and aspirations. As much as I want to push them in the direction, right now they're not there. But what I'm doing is what my dad did for us, which was to introduce to them the business at an early age. So if they decide to turn around and come back like I did, they have that opportunity. So it's sort of building the seed at an early age for that to move forward. But as Peter stated another time when we were talking, allowing them to have their own dreams and aspirations at the same time. So I think it's important to develop your team. And I think it's important to focus on that. And for us, I don't have a succession plan right now either. So I don't have an exit strategy right now. And I think that you should be okay with that. I think people should be okay with that. I mean, I think you should think about it, but certainly you want to focus on moving your business forward. And if that is doing that by developing your leaders and your management team, it'll naturally come. I don't think it's something that you necessarily have to force right now, since we're talking to a lot of people who are first generation.
Awesome. And I'll tell you, for myself, we're in the process of building out our succession planning, but I have boys and I have a bonus daughter, and neither of them right now are interested in the business. They have their own ideas. So I think a lot of times as first generation business owners, we say, well, we want to build the business. We want to build it for our legacy. After we get past maybe the 5-7 years, we're like, I just want to eat. I want to grow the business, right? But once we get to a place where the business starts sustaining, and then we start thinking about legacy, I think a lot of people have children that are not interested in the business. So I want to do a question to everyone that's here. Drop it in the chat. Have you spoken to your kids, if they're old enough, and do they want to take on the business? So I just want to see, for everybody's here, are your kids interested in taking on the business, or have they told you that they're not? I think my oldest son told me once, he said, Mom, I've seen you work too hard. I don't want to do that. That is not the life that I want to have. Okay. So we have yes, but not interested. No. Yes, one of my sons, and he's working in the business. Yes, I have, but only one is my daughter, not my boys. Yes, I have kids, but not interested. Yes, I've had discussions. They are not fully committed at this time. So it's across the board. So I'm seeing a lot of yes, but not interested. Yes, not committed. Son is interested. He is creative minded, and my business is very technical and detail oriented. No, now, yes, but he is recreating everything, capitalizing on his own talents, passions, and skills. Yes, not interested, but also too young. So I think that's one of the questions that I want to ask the panelists. When you find out that your child is not interested in the business, or even if you can see them as they're young, that their talents and their giftings, like someone else said, is creative and maybe your business is a little bit more technical and you had the dream of them taking it over, how do you deal with the disappointment of them not wanting to continue the legacy? Lauren is ready. She's like, I'm going to answer that one.
Oh, yes, because I definitely know that it's a grieving process that you go through. Because I think in my situation, we're talking about 90 years. We're talking about maybe 100 years in Colombia, if we count the funeral home that was acquired by my uncle, which was Johnson Funeral Home, which was older than the one that my grandfather founded. How many African-American businesses do we know in America that old under a continuous family legacy? And I have to admit, I am grieved that I may be the last generation. I don't know though. I have a grandson, but my grandson's not even 2 years old yet. So I just, it's almost like, do you plug along until the maturity kicks in and they show you who they are? Or do you say, okay, if nobody else wants this, why am I killing myself? Or why am I knocking myself out if I know and then I'm being shown that no one else really wants to keep it going? I don't know if that answers the question, but
It
it is
does.
it is a grieving process. There's no question about it, especially when I think about these are Black men during the Depression. We're talking about in the 20s. The funeral home in Sumter. My grandfather finished mortuary school in New York in 1925. He came to Sumter. He opened a funeral home with 2 other people who ended up dying, and then it became his solely owned funeral home. And that was in 1933. We're talking about during the Depression. So this is, you look and compare to what happens with white wealth development in this country, and you see how in the other cultures, that wealth, that generational business is a key component of wealth development. And to see it not happen when we're so close makes me personally very sad. I have to admit that. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that it's tough.
And I think it's very real. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that we do over our next 4 sessions or our next 3 sessions together, is to really have the deep conversations about true succession planning, the good, the bad, the ugly, and what it looks like. And if you look, the majority of the people that are attending the training are business owners are first generation. And I was reading a survey and it says, unfortunately, that for African Americans, they most times are having to create each generation, right? Is not something that is passed down. And so I think what you said is very relevant. And so even in my husband and I, we're having the conversations of, if our kids do not want to take over the business, then how do we utilize the business to still continue the generational wealth? Are we funding businesses that they're interested in? Do we have a holding company that owns all of the other businesses? So our kids, I think, generation, they're more free spirited, they're more outspoken. We were more, I want to take over the family business, right? Because it's the right thing to do. I think a lot of the younger generations, they're like, I want to pursue my own passions. I want to pursue, things that I want to do. So how can you get creative in still passing down that generational wealth if they're not taking over the specific business?
I like that answer, what you just said. I mean, I look at my kids and I have one who wants to be, she's in pharmaceutical science, honor student. And so my discussion with her is, okay, so you want to be a pharmacist and you want to travel the world? Great. Once you settle down, let's look at, after you get the experience, why not own the pharmacy? Why not become the owner of a pharmacy, not just work at the pharmacy? So I want you to go out and get everything that you can get and then do that. In terms of the McDonald's side of it, I'm lucky in that. So let me take you back a little bit. My dad started, I said, in 1973. He bought his first McDonald's, Elmwood Avenue, in 1986. His goal was simple. I want 3 restaurants so that each kid could get one. Okay, that was the goal. He surpassed it. He ended up with 5. Okay. And so my sister, she didn't move forward. My brother, my little brother, who I call my big brother, he's my big little brother because he's my little brother by, being my sibling. But in McDonald's, he stayed, right? He went to college and came back, and he stayed and he pursued the ownership path. So he's my big brother in McDonald's. So he went through, and then I came through, right? And so it's just like Dad had that vision up front, that's what he wanted. He said to me recently, I wish I had the vision for 30. I had the vision for 3. God surpassed what I wanted. I wish I had enough to know to get 30. But anyway, he surpassed the 3. We moved forward. In my case, though, because my brother is my little brother, if my children don't take it on, and if our business partner, which is McDonald's, will allow it, my goal is, if I get finished before he's finished, I pass them to him and it stays in the business. And then perhaps one of his daughters would like to do it, because he has one that's same as mine. She wants to do HR management. So I had a daughter who just graduated from North Carolina Central, and she's I wish she had gone to Spelman, but she didn't. She followed my mom's path and went to NCCU. And you know what? Actually, I'm a sidebar for a second. I was okay with that because the price tag of Spelman, I was like, you know what? You don't want to go there. That's fine. We will save a little money. Although I love Spelman, don't get me wrong. I love it. I love it. I love it. Phenomenal women have come from Spelman, but some phenomenal women have also come from NCCU. So anyway, my point is that she's doing HR management. She's going to go back for her MBA and focus on HR. And his daughter is also doing HR. So I think that one day, maybe both of them will come back to the family business and help us with the skills, just as I did, right? I went out and got skills, become business savvy, and came back and offered that to the company. Hopefully they will do that and then continue to progress forward. So that's my thinking. I don't know if it'll really happen, but that's the goal there, is that we pass it to them.
I love it. Peter, do you have anything that you want to add about succession planning if your kids don't want to take over the business?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think because I had a gap of a couple years between my dad owning the business and Marty and I feel like we're like second generation / first generation. So I don't particularly feel that heaviness of the family business. It feels like me and Marty's business. It doesn't feel like the Brown family business. So Marty's got one of his boys works in the business. He lives in Birmingham and sells for us. And he's got another son that's lives in Montana and is a fishing guide. I've got 4 daughters. My oldest daughter went to Georgia, and now she works in Los Angeles for Warner Brothers Discovery. I've got a second daughter that went to Ole Miss, and she lives in Vail, Colorado, and runs a high-end art gallery in Beaver Creek. And I've got a rising senior at Ole Miss, and I've got a junior in high school. And it's funny, today's my junior in high school's 18th birthday, and she's working at Colite. So she's over here, and she knows she don't get her birthday off because that's not what you do in the family business. You work. So everybody's working, but I do think the most important thing is that when you have a family business, you're teaching your kids so much life experience about what you can do. And the answer is, what you can do is everything. So I just think that the experience that we've given all of our kids and a lot of their friends have worked here too. And I just think it's so important. It's just so different. If you're working for the man, it's different than being the man. You have a sense of, when you own your own business, you have a sense of family, You have a sense of community. You have a sense of we're all in this together. You've got a sense of, love that just doesn't translate if you got a job. So the answer is I don't have a job. I've got a life experience. And the 105 people that work for me, they mean everything to me. And we've always been, probably pro employee to a fault. But the reason we do that is because we care. And I care about them probably more than I care about me 9 out of 10 days. So I think this just in our business, I feel like we've got so many options going forward. The number one option right now is that Marty and I have re-signed up. He might think it's 5 years, but it's really 10 years. We're putting in the structure right now that we might be able to have fun again over the next 10 years and not work so hard. So
Peter,
anyway.
you tricked Marty. You told him he was signed up for 5 years and it's 10.
Well, right now he's out fishing in Montana, so
So it's not that hard.
It is what it is. He'll just have to deal with it. I'll send him an email later.
Oh,
Make sure he knows he's in.
May I say something, Renee, that I just want to piggyback on?
absolutely.
One of the things that I will say that I'm very proud of is that there have been so many other funeral directors who have come through Palmer at one point in their lives. They've been trained and they go out and they start their own funeral homes. So I can truly say that Palmer has been the testing ground and has provided experience-based learning for so many other Black funeral directors who are now on their own. And I do want to mention that because we have to redefine family sometime. If you don't have a lot of family, or you're only looking at one or two that have possibilities of being a part of the succession plan, it's important to look and say, okay, who is, just like with adoption or anything, how do you define family? Who are they? Can they be expanded to include others who may not be blood, but have a skill set, a drive, all of that. I've been a big proponent of some of the people who are now going to mortuary school who have no family connection to the funeral industry at all. What's going to happen if nobody gives them an opportunity? So I'm a big proponent on, having interns, doing things to try to create an interest, especially with young women in male-dominated fields, to explore this. And so I just wanted to throw that in for what it's worth.
I think that was great. I think that was great. And Peter, we want to wish your daughter a happy birthday. Please send her from all 85 of us, send her a happy birthday. And I love it is better to be the man than work for the man. If you agree with that, drop in the chat. Is it better to be the man than work for the man? All right, next slide, please. But I did want to just read some of the comments. Lauren, is someone else in the chat actually that has a funeral business? So just look in the chat to say hello to them. Judy was saying you should have lengthy full circle conversations with your son and daughter because they may not have a full understanding of the business and how their skills and capabilities can be a great fit, even if it's somewhat different than yours. Several conversations over time, over years. Judy, I think that's a great point. Let's see. David said, my youngest son, who is 21, is currently working for me and has expressed interest in taking over the business, but we have yet to have the hard conversation about it. I'm hoping to learn a lot from this so I can have that conversation with him. Absolutely. And as we're going, if you all have questions, please drop them in the chat. My rule for succession to kids is don't ruin Thanksgiving dinner. That is, don't let succession planning start a family feud. All right, Luis. All right. Let's see. David said, I agree. I hired my brother to run the operations side of the business with the intent of him heading back to North Carolina to start a franchise he could run. Unfortunately, there was not a clear understanding of roles, and he left me high and dry with 3 days of notice of him quitting and I haven't spoken to him in 8 months. Wow. So David, that's one of the biggest reasons why we talk about is that it's important to have those systems in places, those processes in place, because everybody needs to understand what their role is and how their role impacts the bottom line. Okay. And I see everybody says, be the man. Jacqueline says, be the boss lady. Okay. So be the man or be the boss lady is better. Okay. And Ayana says, will there be a replay or a PowerPoint sent out via email? Camille, Tiffany, if you guys can respond to that. So the reason why we always start off with the personal stories is because when we're talking about succession planning can mean something different for each owner. But this is the business definition of it. So succession planning is a business strategy for passing leadership roles on to one or more employees. So really it's who is going to take over the business that you have. And as Lauren was talking about, it could be family or it could be a new definition of family. Really want to make sure that whoever is taking over has the heart of the business. The strategy is used to ensure that the business runs smoothly after the owners retire or exit or withdraw from the business. As you hear from each one of our panelists, they do not plan on exiting, or at least Peter and Taruka, anytime soon. Right? They're going to get the systems in place. Now, Lauren, you have to tell us, are you looking at exiting anytime soon? But Peter and Taruka, not right now.
No, I am not planning on exiting anytime soon, and I am in the process of getting my mechanisms in place.
Okay, so basically what's going to happen is these owners are going to live their life out fully. One day they're going to close their eyes and decide that they no longer work again, but they will have the systems and the people in place. So succession planning involves cross-training employees to help develop the skills, knowledge, and understanding of the business. So you hear all of the panelists talking about how it's so important to develop your people, and not just your executives or your leaders, but your managers and your employees as well, making sure that they're all being cross-trained. And plans can be long-term, which are meant to account for future changes or for emergencies whenever anything arises. Next slide, please. Y'all, I'm just over here clicking. All right, so benefits of succession planning. So number one is maintaining business security and business continuity, identifying the qualified leaders that you have internally, and also identifying if family members are qualified, right? Because I've heard many horror stories where family members were not qualified for the role to take over the business, but the family members put them in the role. And unfortunately, it hurt and it harmed the business. So you have to be very careful that you're not transitioning a business to an heir or to a family member, and they're not qualified to do it, or those capabilities cannot be developed. Another reason for succession planning is really being able to reduce your expenses. A lot of times people don't do the proper tax planning. They don't do the proper planning of the amount that you have to invest to get your business ready if you want to sell it. So with you doing the proper planning, you're making sure that you have the right systems and processes in place. Another one is to eliminate confusion with family members and employees. And we heard it in the chat, not understanding the roles and the responsibilities. It can be catastrophic. And really encouraging learning, training, and development. So if you see someone or you have a family member that has the potential, really being able to develop those skills. Next slide, please. And let's see, Frenchie said in the chat, my name is Frenchie and I would love to talk to you about the funeral business. Okay, so I think this is directed towards you, Lauren, owner of Bonds Royal Funeral Home, Otis Black owned. So can you reach out to them in the chat, please?
Yes, I'd love to.
Okay, thank you. So 4 ways to transfer business owners. You have the takeover by a co-owner or spouse. It can be purchased by key employees. It can be passed down to an heir or a relative, or you can have an acquired, it can be acquired by an outside party. And so there are pros and cons to both of them. And I think really in just sharing from the panelists, we've talked about some of those pros and cons. Next slide, please. So there can be business reasons and there can be personal reasons for exiting the business. And these are just going to be some on the next two slides. So some of the business reasons are you can have offers for your business to purchase either the entire business or the entire business assets. I have had clients that have developed um, intellectual property or processes and procedures that other companies actually wanted to license, or they wanted to buy or purchase those processes and those procedures or the intellectual property. You could have it where they want to purchase the entire business, they want to purchase a line of the business, or they want to purchase assets. So one of the reasons in thinking about succession planning is if you want to sell the assets or actually sell your business. So I think we've talked a lot about passing it down to an heir, but another form of succession planning is selling the business. Dissatisfaction with resources and support. As Peter was talking about, as you start getting over that 5-7 year mark, what's required to leverage and to build or scale the business is a lot more than what was required in the earlier years. So sometimes CEOs will get burned out, or really they've lost the passion for the business. They enjoyed the business when it was in those fun, smaller years, but now that it's starting to get more like a real corporation, a lot of CEOs don't find the joy in it, or they could be stressed. Changes in the market or the industry, and we see the impact with COVID and other things where there's been a huge change in the market. Some owners decide to exit the business or sell. Or if you have worked the business for a while and you want to just have a little bit less stress and you're looking at working a job again. Next slide, please. So some of the personal reasons could simply be, even though none of our panelists are identifying with this, you're ready to retire. You're ready to travel the world. You're ready to not have your day consumed or your week consumed with work. So just a sidebar question. Panelists, how many hours a week do you work? And all of the CEOs, I want you to drop in the chat as well. How many hours a week do you work? I think it's a misconception. A lot of people say, well, I want to own my own business. I want to work less. I want to, do whatever it is that I want to do. So panelists, how many hours a week do you work? And attendees, drop in the chat. How many hours a week do you work?
So I like to work 6 days a week. 7 days tends to be too much because every day then feels like the other days. So I usually like to work Monday through Friday, usually 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And I do try to check out when I go home. I don't really like to keep it going the rest of the night. Tomorrow is always another day. Every once in a while, something will come up that we got to deal with. I always take Saturday off, and then I usually work Sunday afternoon after church and before dinner.
Okay.
I'm a big routine person. And I also feel like the reason I like routine is if you start getting out of your routine, it tends to give you a heads up that maybe something's going on. So if I find myself not wanting to go to work on a Friday, that's usually kind of a red flag for me that I need to address something with myself because I like working. I think I remember we're taking a personal day off one time and just hung around the house, and then all four of my kids, thought that there was something wrong with me. I thought I had like an illness or something, and I just tried to explain to them I just needed a day off. So I also think that a few years ago, my brother and I, as we re-engage on these 5 to 10 year plans, what we told ourselves was we were going to work really hard, but we weren't going to be afraid to take some time off. So I think you got to be able to take some time off. But if I'm just in my normal routine, I like working 6 days a week.
I love it. All right, other panelists. And I was going to say,
I've had-
Thomas, hold on one second for me, Lorraine. Thomas, I know you had a question that you wanted to talk about, a great experience that you had as a supplier at McDonald's. Please make sure you drop that in the text. I want to make sure that Taruka sees that. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Well, for many of you, you know that the funeral business is like 24/7. And what I've learned through my growth process is here's what I have to have. My day has to start with meditation. It has to start with prayer and meditation. It usually starts about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 or 7 in the morning. I do not start business calls if I can help it until 9, till after 9, but my day may be very long. And we have to be flexible in my business because, as we know, death has no time.
Mhm.
And so, one of the things that I've tried to do recently, since I now have a grandchild, is I've tried to say, okay, Friday is Lovey Day. That's my day with my grandchild. And I don't like any interruptions unless it's urgent or critical or just, beyond reason, they must have me. What has helped a lot with my weekends is that my son conducts the services. So I can do what I love in the business, which is the funeral arranging, the aftercare, some things that even though I have a team now that does all this, I'm more and more flexible to go when I want to go out of town. I do it. I'm starting to learn that the truth of the matter is, in my business, when a loved one transitions, that transition occurs. And just because a family says, okay, we got to have this service immediately, does not mean that, because there are different timelines and there are things that can happen that we have to interject in order to help families to understand. So I'm saying that to say there is more flexibility than there was in the first part of my life. Now I'm feeling like I can almost enjoy some level of semi-retirement with still being active. So I do want to clarify though, Renee, that I do want to travel more.
Mhm.
I do want to, if I decide I want to write a book or whatever else I want to do, and I do Pilates 3 times a week.
I
8 o'clock
love it.
class, Pilates, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I can help it. So all of that keeps me going. The spiritual reinforcement, the physical reinforcement, and then just taking the attitude that my day is based on what God has for me to do that day and that time. It's not my own.
I love it. But Taruka, before you, I want everybody to hear what the panelists are saying. They're having the people, the systems in place that enables them to do the flexibility. If we look in the chat, we have some 10 to 12-hour days, 80 to 90 hours a week, 7 days a week. So in building the business, oftentimes it does require a lot, but we just want to make sure that we iterate the importance of having your systems in place and developing your team so it does free you up so you can operate more like Peter was saying in that overseer standpoint. All right, so how
Right.
many hours do you work? And the reason why I always like to ask that is because for people to really understand what it's taking to build a business and to put succession planning in place.
So I'm glad you stopped and started with that again about the hours and what Peter was saying. For me, I'm always on. So I can't really say how many hours because it is based off of the leadership team that I have in place at that time. So we're lucky to have some people who've been with us 26 years, 37 years. We have a supervisor, 36 years, 37 years. We have a 26-year general manager, one that's been with us for 21 years. And so it allows us to have the opportunity to not micromanage them at certain times. But then there are certain times when, for some of the other restaurants, we need to because they may be newer. So it's really dependent on the leadership team that you have in place at that time, right? Will determine. So I, like Lauren, in the morning when I get up, the first thing I do is read the Bible and meditate, get on my knees and I pray and I thank him. And then after that, my new thing, I'm trying to lose weight. So I'm going to a trainer 3 times a week. I leave the house at 4:30 a.m. Okay, so that's some dedication. I wish the pounds would follow. My eating is the problem. Okay, I got the getting up part, but the eating is the problem. So anyway, I get up, I go to her, and I get there 5, I leave at 6. And sometimes my phone may ring at 5 o'clock, you know? in the morning. A manager may be telling me something, maybe they tried to call the supervisor, he wasn't available. And so depending on what it is, I'm like, you cannot just say, oh, the supervisor didn't answer. You need to call and let me know what's going on. Maybe I can assist. Maybe it's, something really bad, like a door was left open, or, you don't feel safe, or, the system isn't up. So I need to know those things so I can assist you if I need to. And sometimes my phone rings at midnight. And that's on maybe one of the stores that doesn't have an experienced manager. Now, some of those experienced manager stores, I'm not getting calls from those because they know how to answer. So it's all about the team that we have in place at the time, how we've built up the team. So the goal is to get everyone at that same level where they can filter their own, they know what to do. And that just takes time, right? On us getting there.
So
I wanted to say too.
Oh, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to say too, you talked about some difficulties, and for me, my dad, I asked him, how has he done it all these years? And he said, I laid in the bed, looked at the ceilings many of nights. And what I can tell you is that you have to put your hands in God's unchanging hand. You have to do that. And he said, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean on not on thy own understanding. And that's what I try to do. There are times when, because you mentioned something before on a previous slide about it not being fun anymore, or, you have to elevate yourself. And that's what I have to do. Sometimes when I want to complain about, oh, this is so hard, we're doing this, can't get staffed, or, this is going on, or that is going on, I have to go back and check myself and say, you raised your hand for this.
Mhm.
This is what you wanted to do. You proved to everybody that you can do it, so do it. And no one said it was going to be easy every day. No one said that you're going to have, this set 8-hour day. Every day is different. Like, I just got knocked off the call, and I was like, I laughed when I was going to get my phone to get back on. I was like, just like a typical day. I mean, you never know, but you have to get on and show up. That's what I would tell you. You have to show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when you'd rather sleep, because all you get when you go to sleep is a dream. So you got to show up and just do your best every day and say to yourself, what could I have improved today? What could I do different to make my tomorrow a better day? And so that's what I want to share on that part. Sorry if I went a little off topic.
We can just end the webinar right there. Thank you for coming. Put your business in God's hands. Pray every night. Look up to the sky, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. No, I have a question that I want to ask the group, and then panelists, I want you to respond. How many of you all are solopreneurs, or how many of you all are having difficulty in building the team? How many of you all are having difficulty building a team? I know a lot of CEOs are type 1 or not type 1, but type A personality, where they feel like their hands have to be touching everything. It's very difficult for them to delegate. And one of the biggest things in doing succession planning, or even in scaling your business, is having the right people in place. So I want you all to drop in the chat to let me know how many of you all are had difficulty building your team, or how many of you all are having difficulty delegating. And so panelists, I want you to answer that question. Have you had difficulty in building your team, getting with the right people not having the same work ethic as you, the same integrity as you? Like, one of the biggest things in building a business or succession planning is building your team or finding the right people. So what challenges have you had, and how did you overcome them? And next slide, please.
I can start on that one.
Yeah.
So coming into a business where we do have people who've been with us for a long time, sometimes you have to make a decision. I recently just made one. This person had been with us for 11 years, but it was time. He was tired, and it showed in his restaurant. So sometimes you have to make that decision. Do I keep this person based on their loyalty, or do I keep them based on work ethic, results? Because at the end of the day, it's about results. It's about, are you serving the community in our business, right? We have, our mission is to serve the community, to serve each other, and to serve our customers, And so if you're not doing that, if you're not providing hot, fresh food fast, you got to go back to the bottom line. The bottom line for us is, are you providing hot, fresh food fast in a clean environment? That's the question. And are you or aren't you? And when you look at that first, are you or are you not? If you are not, why? Is it because we didn't provide you the training that you needed to be successful? Okay. And so if the answer is yes, we honestly assess that and we say, yep, you know what, Taruka, I did get the training. So then now what's the problem? Is it because you just don't want to? Have you lost the fire? Your interests are somewhere else? Do you have family things going on? What's the problem? You have to assess and figure out what the issues are. And then sometimes you have to make the difficult decision. And I just had to make a difficult decision. I didn't want to. I tried. I said, I know this person can't do it anymore. He's been with us for 11 years. Okay, well, can I put him over here? No. Okay, well I want to put him over here. And the answer was no. Okay, well, I'm gonna put him over here. Maybe I'll make him a floater. No, I don't think his attitude would work with that. Being a floater, he would just be disgruntled. So I had to pull him out. There was no choice, but I thought long and hard and I prayed about it before I made the decision.
I want to say that I have been so blessed with the team that I've trained in, especially I want to start with the Sumter location. We have 2 locations in 2 different cities, and I split my time between the 2 cities as I operate these funeral homes. And I could not do that without the team that I have trained and developed. The loyalty, the work ethic, the commitment to vision, the ability to see things happening before they happen. I have been blessed with a very detailed oriented person, and I've been blessed with a very creative person. When the 2 of them come together and they're proactive, it is a blessing. I have a clinical director who's been with me for almost 40 years. He was a year behind me in mortuary school. He came out of mortuary school, started his apprenticeship, stayed with our operation for our firm. He now embalms for both cities. I use him in Sumter and Columbia. And I'm very, very proud of this team. One of the things that I'm very, very concerned about, though, is making sure that generations are represented within the workforce. It's probably a little different than Teresa. She's got young people, other people that work at McDonald's and so forth. But for us, we have longevity. Families get very tied and connected with people who work with you. And so the continuity of care is very, very important in our industry. And so I want to make sure that I'm always kind of training. I can tell that the 2 in Sumter are starting to get a little tired, are starting to get a little burnout. So what I've tried to do is bring in a younger person that they can train, so that when their time does come, or if they do have to step out or step aside, there will be someone in place with the continuity of care and well-trained who can move on. So I find that delegating the training process has been something that has allowed us to grow. And also, it's our brand. It's that caring that they give families. It's our brand. So that is the one thing. Now, in the Columbia location, we have a younger, newer staff. And I think that there have been more challenges. I find that persons who seem to be in their 40s on up seem to work best in our industry for some reason right now. It's been challenging to have some folk who are coming out of mortuary schools right now. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. There have been some challenges in work ethics, and just seeing what's happening with our 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. For some reason in our industry, they seem to do a lot better. I'd say maybe 30, 36 on up is kind of where we are in what I've found so far.
Okay. Thank you. So I want to say a couple things. One is, and then Peter, I'm gonna come right back to you. A lot of people in the chat are talking about needing assistance and needing to develop your systems and processes and finding out how to grow your team. Guess what? Come to the next 3 sessions because we're gonna go into detail how to set up your systems and processes, what systems and processes you need to increase your business valuation, how to identify your team members, how to develop your leaders. So the next 3 sessions are actually going to be working sessions. So you don't want to miss those. But I want to offer something real quick before Peter talks to most of the people that are solopreneurs, most of the people that it's just you as a part-time assistant, et cetera. One of the biggest things that I have faced in my business in finding people is you being crystal clear on your vision, your mission, your role, and what it is that you want to accomplish. Most of the times as a CEO, we don't understand what our role is. Are we going to be the CEO, which is the visionary, the person that sets the strategy, that sets the tone and pace? Are we going to be the one that's actually delivering the products and services? Or are we the one that's going to be doing the marketing and the selling? We're the face of the company. So I think the very first thing that you have to do is to understand what your strengths, your weaknesses are, what role you are going to serve, what is your vision, and then, identify who the key people are. Because sometimes we'll have the right person, they're in the wrong position. And so Tariko was saying she was having to figure out. So sometimes we may have the right person, but they're just not a right fit because we're not clear on what we need their role to be. Or it can simply be that we have no idea what they're supposed to be doing and they could be the right person, but we just don't have clarity. So one thing that I want you all to do prior to our next session, which is going to really be about leaders and preparing and training, is to figure out what does your role need to be in the business. So look at your organizational chart. If you don't have an organizational chart, create one. Don't put names in the places, but put what the roles and their responsibilities are so you can visually see who you need on your team to grow your business. Does that make sense? Okay, Peter, what did you have to ask? We have about 4 more minutes. What do you have to ask, Peter?
Yeah, and I've got a hard stop at 1:30. For those that don't know, I'm on city council, so I'm heading back to City Hall for a 2 o'clock meeting. But a couple things I think are important. Number one, I think I grew up in a generation where the keys to success were to work hard and be likable. In today's world, you really got to work hard, be likable, and you got to be smart. So it's a different, and I can't tell you how many times I feel like we've already reinvented ourselves in the last 31 years. And it seems like we used to reinvent ourselves every 10 years, and now it feels like we reinvent ourselves every 3 to 4 years. So if you got to reinvent yourself every 3 to 4 years, you find out that people don't fit because you're continually having to change and evolve. And I think it's unfair to keep somebody in your business that does no longer fits, because every day that they're there, that's a day that they don't have in their life. So it's not fair to the company, but it's also specifically not fair to the individual to leave them in a place where they cannot be successful. Because if you leave them there for 5 years, that's 5 years they could have been successful someplace else. And in today's world, because things do change so much, people can be successful in several different places. So if they're not a good fit in your business, I promise they're likely they'll find a good fit in somebody else's business. And specifically in a lot of businesses that don't change as much as we have and that kind of stay the same, that person may go to another business where he or she is more comfortable in that lack of change or evolvement. So I think it's important to think that way. Sometimes we think, about us, and when we think about our employees, we don't quite think about it as with the breadth and the depth that you need to understand your role and how important you are to other people's success. And sometimes their success means that they shouldn't be with you going forward.
I love it. And Peter, we won't know that though, unless we're crystal clear on the vision of the business, what our role is, and what skill sets we need.
100% most important thing in everybody's business is alignment. Alignment of who you are in the messaging. I spend more time messaging to our employees about who we are, not to our customers. Our customers have an easier time figuring out who we are than sometimes our employees do. And just as an example, we have so many people that transition in and out of here, and we don't have a lot of turnover, but people do leave to go, to different places, and they move, and they get married and all kind of other stuff. We do I do a tour for our employees of our own facility every Friday at 9:00. So I take our employees and we meet in the factory, and we just walk around and we just look for stuff to talk about. And we spend 30 minutes every Friday. We probably at least 50 of our employees tag along, and we just talk. And a lot of that is messaging, and a lot of that is the alignment of ownership, management, and everybody else about who we are and why we, what our purpose is, and how to make everybody better.
Well, Peter, you actually are ending us on a high note, because that is the top of the thing of what we're going to talk about. Our next session is the mission, the messaging, the alignment, because that comes before the employees. So thank you so much to all of our panelists. I am seeing all of the wonderful messages that you guys are sending about how you enjoyed this session, about how organized it was. So thank you. I do want everybody, before we delete, drop in the chat and tell me what was one aha that you got from the training. What was one aha? Drop it in the chat. And we have 3 more sessions coming up. June 27th, where we're going to be talking about increasing your business valuation. We're going to go over specifically the systems, the processes, the procedures, the marketing, the branding, the operations, the sales, all of it that you need. In our July 13th session, we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts, the legal and accounting. And then July 27th, we're going to talk about the actual steps preparing to transition or exit your business. So bring your questions. This will be interactive. We will be talking through the chat. And so we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Camille, do you have any final thing, or panelists, do you have any final words as we close?
I just want to thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to have this interchange between the panelists and those who came on to be a part of this session. This is, each one that's coming up is critical in so many ways, and I look forward to joining the next ones as well. But thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
We're going to hold you to it, so we expect to see you at the next ones. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, T. Renee, for leading the discussion, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing your information. We encourage everyone to return, and we encourage you to invite your heirs and partners and investors and key employees to register and participate in the upcoming sessions. Thank you again.